Hello बच्चों, सत श्री अकाल and namaste from my side. How are you all? So guys, this is Indrajit Singh welcoming you all into the most sensible platform for an aspirants, those who are preparing for JEE NEET. Okay, so this is right again after solids, the new lecture right for the fluids. Okay, so guys, I must say mechanical properties of fluids. Mechanical properties of fluids, right? So lots of things we are going to discuss. Okay, as usual, first of all I want to tell you all that I usually tell in front, okay, about the syllabus of the physics 11th. So guys, the syllabus is designed in such a way, it is designed in such a way that till motion into the 2D we have to deal only with the particles, right? We are not dealing with the cause of the motion. After that, moving on to the Newton's law of motion, work, energy and power and rotational, we are dealing with the internal configuration of the body and it's the cause of motion, and we are analyzing the entire part. Beyond this, we are into the different domain. It's also the part of a mechanics, that is gravitation. Now till here, right, the configuration of the body is considered. Now beyond this, if I'm talking about the solid, then elastic behavior of the solids are discussed. Okay, now here the new domain of fluids has been added. So this is how the syllabus is designed and this is the flow, and we have to move accordingly. Okay, what part we are going to cover into the mechanical properties of the fluids, right? Lots of lectures, lots of notations are there. Okay, but first of all I want to discuss right, what part we are going to cover into the fluids. If I'm talking about the fluids, the first thing we are going to cover it up, okay, that is Pascal's law and its application. Acceleration of the containers. Acceleration of the containers, right? The third thing that we are going to discuss, okay, third thing that we are going to discuss, Archimedes Principle. With this we are going to discuss the law of flotation. Okay, after this, Bernoulli's principle, equation of continuity, right? Concept of surface tension. Okay, these are the things that we are going to discuss in this today's lecture. So shall we begin? Okay, so let's start with the Pascal's law. What does it states? What does it actually mean? Lots of things we are going to discuss. Before moving on to that part, I want to tell you all that I told you in the beginning of the solids chapter what is an actual difference between pressure, okay, and stress, because in this entire chapter, right, we are going to deal with pressure at the depth, pressure of the container, right, while rotation, lots of things regarding pressure we are going, and it plays a pivot role. You can say it is the most prominent part of this syllabus, the most prominent part of the syllabus, that is pressure, nothing else. So as I told you all, both are having the simple meaning. Pressure is also force per unit area, right? Stress is also force per unit area. Dimensionally they both are same, but dimensionally both, right, are same. Dimensionally both are same, but the things differ, right? Things always differ. right? Conceptually, this is nothing else, the force per unit entire area, of an object. And this is nothing else, force per unit cross-sectional area. There is a difference. And into the previous session, I told you all, right? I gave you an example of the day-to-day life, right? Okay, gave you an example of the day-to-day life. The difference between the migraine and a headache. The students might be saying, sir, migraine is itself an headache. No. Okay, I'm not, what we can say, contradicting anything. Migraine is just, right, what we can say, we are having this specific part, right, in the inside, right, in the specific part, right, if we feel like someone is trying to stretch, right, our veins, like that, right, not veins exactly, but see, technically, biologically, I'm not exactly defined about that, okay, but it feels like some part of the brain, someone is trying to stretch it hard. Someone is trying to stretch it hard. Okay, someone is trying to stretch it hard. But when we are having the headache, entire ache is distributed into the head. Headache, entire ache is distributed. I can't say distributed, but you can easily understand the difference between these two. Okay, that difference will help us in understanding, right, the concepts of what we can say, the pressure and the stress. Okay, generally in the fluids, whenever the object is immersed inside the fluid, okay, whenever the object is immersed inside the fluid, right, suppose this is an object, the rigid body, okay, then it is immersed inside the fluid. What happens here? The force is acting, right, towards an object from the all direction. This is pressure. Okay. This is pressure. So, why this thing was important? Because in the entire chapter, we are going to deal with that stuff. So, it is important to know each and every part about it. Now, let's move on to the most important thing of the Pascal's law. The most important thing of the fluids, right, from which the Pascal's law starts. Now, what does it states? Right. Whenever, right, see, it is having the two sort of examples. Pascal's law is having its proof also, and it is having its statement also. Its statement states that whenever any pressure is applied to the fluid, it is equally distributed in all directions. Right. What is a right? When pressure is applied to a fluid, it is equally distributed in all directions. It is equally distributed in all directions. So this wants to say the entire hydraulic systems, hydraulic brake, hydraulic lift, hydraulic jacks, right? The hydraulics beneath your bed. Okay, everything works on this principle. Okay, a small amount, I can't say the high amount of the pressure, but a small amount of the pressure is applied to the fluid. Okay, and like it is distributed equally into the, right, all of those directions, and our task is easily, right, we can easily, right, accomplish it. Okay, hydraulics, long skyscrapers are built on basis of the hydraulics, right? Entire structures are made into the manufacturing plants, and they are imported to the site, and immediately using the hydraulics they are kept, the floor by floor, floor by floor, right? Like this way it's made. Okay, so before that it was quite difficult, but after the hydraulics were introduced, okay, the industry faced a rapid change, lots of advancements, right? Without hydraulics, I don't think so the Burj Khalifa was, okay, possible to make up. Without hydraulics, it's not possible. Okay, you can't even think how to design that part. Okay, anyhow, if you reach up to the final design, it's okay, but it is very difficult to accomplish that much high heighted building without hydraulics. Not even possible. Okay, so what does this law state? This law states, okay, the examples of it. Okay, hydraulic systems. Hydraulic brakes. Hydraulic lifts. Hydraulic jacks. Right? Spray, jet spray. This is an example of the jet spray. Have you ever seen Big On? Right? Have you ever seen? Right? We are having one handle, right, through which we are applying the pressure. On applying the very small amount of the pressure, right, through these pores, right, immediately the fluid is bursting out. Right? So that's the best example of the, right? That's the best example of the Pascal's law. Simply it's want to state that fluid is having that much capability that whatever he receives, okay, he equally distributes into the all directions. Okay, he equally distributes into the all direction. In another sense, another statement, right, in another sense we can also tell about the Pascal's law that there is one proof given into the multiple books regarding the Pascal's law. Okay, that whenever right, a container is immersed, suppose this is in column, okay, immersed inside a fluid, right, immersed inside the fluid. There is one column that is immersed inside the fluid. Now obviously whenever it is immersed, right, whenever it is immersed, I must say the force is acting from all of those directions. Yes, here the force is acting from this direction, force is acting from this direction, right, F2, and force is acting from this direction, F3. This is right a cross sectional area A1, this is a cross sectional area A2, entire area, and this is a right what we can say A3. So here he wants to say the pressure. See, suppose a liquid column is introduced, right, and when you're applying the small pressure, right, okay, from the outside, then it is going to equally distributed into the all directions. So this is going to tell us how when the column is immersed inside the fluid, the pressure acting on the all sides are equal. Okay, pressure acting on all sides is equal, right? So here what is going to help? Okay, force per unit area, right, and force per unit area, these three are equal from all directions. In another sense, P1 is equivalent to P2 is equivalent to P3. Okay, this is a simple geometry. Okay, using geometry sine cos theta we can easily prove that. We are not going to into that much and we are not going to waste our time, but it's okay, we can start it up, right? We can start this up. Okay, so this is a small derivation regarding the Pascal's law. It has been already mentioned into the book, lots of resources, even in the right the board's book it is also present, but we are not moving on to that part here. How the pressure varies at the depth. How the pressure varies at the depth. See, let us take an example. This is right a surface. Okay, this is a surface, right, and this is at the depth h. Okay, let us take an example. One the rod is introduced, one object is introduced inside the fluid. Okay, how pressure varies with respect to the depth. Okay, let's move on. Before that, we want to discuss some of the limitations regarding the pressure. Okay, some of the noteworthy points are to be needed. Now, what does it states? Noteworthy points. First, PA is equivalent to 1 atmosphere, and this is the value of the atmospheric pressure. PA, that is equivalent to 1 atmosphere, and this is the value of the atmospheric pressure, right? This is the value of the atmospheric pressure. Atmospheric pressure always acts perpendicular to surface. Always acts perpendicular to the surface. Suppose if the surface is like this way, atmospheric pressure acts like this way. If the surface is tilted at some angle, atmospheric pressure acts like this way. So it acts always normal to the specific surface. At whatsoever angle you are going to tilt the surface, right, this will come up into the cases of the accelerated containers and everything. At whatsoever, right, angle you are going to tilt that part, okay, the atmospheric pressure is always going to act, okay, into the perpendicular direction, right? The value of the atmospheric pressure, 1 atmosphere, it is going to be constant. If the system is closed, no atmospheric pressure acts. If the system is closed, no atmospheric pressure acts. Yes or no? No atmospheric pressure acts. There are some more points also, but slowly with the content we are going to deliver that part. Now, pressure at the depth. At the surface, we are having, okay, atmospheric pressure acting perpendicular to the surface. Suppose if I am talking about the 2 points, point A and point B. Okay, one noteworthy point. At one, okay, here. At one surface level, the pressure is same at all points. This thing we are going to discuss into the detail into the hydrostatic paradox, right? Okay. Now let's move back to this part. One object is introduced inside the fluid. An object is introduced inside the fluid. Now what happens here? Okay. Whenever it is introduced, okay, the P atmospheric pressure is acting perpendicular to the surface. Now we need to calculate how pressure varies with respect to the depth. Right? How pressure varies with respect to the depth. So I want to tell you all. Suppose if we are plotting up the FBD for this, right? Okay. So here is the value of the F1 that is acting from the upward direction. Here is the value of F2 that is acting from the downward direction. From one side we are having the value of F1, right? Okay. The difference of these two forces, right? The difference of these two forces is, right? So this force difference according to the condition of the equilibrium of the forces, right? If the system is stationary, then can I say that the summation of all y forces, right? Can I say this or not? Okay, the summation of all y forces is equivalent to 0. Why? As net acceleration along the y is 0. Okay, net acceleration along the y is 0, so because of that, right, the summation of the all forces that is into the y direction is 0. So the difference of the forces F2 minus F of 1, that will be equivalent to, right, the weight of an object. Okay, So here F2, can I say that this is pressure at the point 2 into area? F1, that is pressure at the point 1 into the area, that is M equivalent to mg. So here P2 minus P1, that is equivalent to A, and that is, can I replace it at M as rho, density into volume. So it's P2 minus P1, that is rho into A into H. A is an area, volume, that is area into height, okay, into G. So this A is going to get cancelled. The formula of the pressure difference it is going to come upon is P2 minus P1, that is equal to rho GH. This is the general formula. This is the general formula we are talking about, right? The general formula we are talking about. Okay, the general formula we are talking about. Now, what is going to happen? Okay, what is going to happen further, right? Suppose with respect to the surface level, if we want to write up this formula, with respect to the surface level, if we want to, suppose this is a surface, object is here, right, at the depth h, okay, then how pressure varies? Here the atmospheric pressure is acting, right? So can I say that pressure at the point A, pressure at the depth, okay, A, that will be equivalent to the pressure at the surface, that is atmospheric pressure, plus rho GH. This is how things are defined, right? This is how things are defined all the time. Yes or no? Okay, this is how things are defined all the time. Okay, so depth A plus ATM plus rho GH, right? Okay, now what is going to happen further? This was a variation, right? Okay, this was the variation, okay, of the pressure with respect to the. Now, what are the applications of the Pascal's law? First of all, hydraulic lift, as I told you all in front, right? Hydraulic jacks, okay, hydraulic lift, hydraulic brakes. Lots of examples are there, right? Lots of applications of the Pascal's law are there, but these are the most of the prominent. Now, suppose we are taking this example of the applications of the Pascal's law, right? What happens here? See, here suppose the cross-sectional area is A2. Here suppose the cross-sectional area is A1. Suppose here the force is applied from one side according to the Pascal's law. If force is applied into the fluid, then it is going to equally distribute into the all direction. So whatever amount of the force that is applied, see, these are pistons, right? Pistons are having the capability to move up and down, up and down, up and down, right? This is also a piston, right? So if force, this is a cross-sectional area A1, this is a cross-sectional area A2. Pressures on the both sides are going to be equal according to the Pascal's law. Pressure on the both sides pressure on the both sides of the fluid, right, are going to be equal. And that is nothing else but the Pascal's law, right? So here it is one of the applications. So it is P1 that is equivalent to P2, F1 by A1 that is equivalent to F2 by A2. So the amount of the force that is applied from the one side for this piston, right, it is going to equally distribute. See, this arrow states What does this arrow states, right? It is going to equally distribute in all directions, right? And same it is going to apply to the second piston. Okay, so this is the one of the applications of the Pascal's law, and there are many more for it. What is the actual meaning of the hydrostatic paradox? Whatever, see, this all are the capillary tubes in which fluids are filled. This all are capillary tubes for fluids. Okay, this all are capillary tube for fluids. Okay, now what is going to happen here? Hydrostatic paradox states that, okay, whatever should be the size of the capillary tube or the shape of the capillary tube, irrespective of any shape and size of capillary tube, irrespective of any shape and size of the capillary tube, right? At one surface level, pressure is going to be same. Let's see how. Suppose if I'm talking about this one surface level, let's say it is point A. I'm talking about the second surface level, right? Let's say it is point B. Okay, I'm talking about the bottom, that is point C. At all of those points, right, we are going to keep this cylinder. Suppose one cylinder is kept at this position. One cylinder is kept at this position. This is cylinder A and this is, let's say, A dash, right, and B dash. Okay, same. Cylinder A is at the depth of H1 and cylinder B is at the depth of H2. Similarly, what is going to happen if I'm talking about the A, right, then P2 minus P1, that is going to be rho G H of A. And if I'm talking about B, then P2 minus P1, that is equal to rho G H of B. Okay, this formula we have already obtained using the Pascal's law, and we have seen it also. But what happens here? Suppose the same cylinder you are keeping at the same height, right, but the shape of the capillary tube is different, it doesn't matter. If you are keeping the same cylinder, right, at the point A dash, the same cylinder or the small particle, whatever you want to do, at the same height. Okay, so irrespective of the shape and sizes, right, at the one surface level, the pressures, right, are going to be same. At one surface level, the pressure is going to be same. Okay, at one surface level, the pressure is going to be same. Okay, so here what happens? This hydrostatic paradox is written into the grammatical formations is given, right? Irrespective of any shape and size into the capillary tubes, right? If you are filling up the liquid, okay, irrespective, and then the one surface level, the pressure is going to be same. The same thing we discussed. I wrote into the noteworthy points at the one surface level, the pressure is same at the all points. Okay, that we have seen into the hydrostatic paradox. Now let's see some of the sums based on it. A tube, see this YouTube based sums, right? Not YouTube, but YouTube based sums are maximum task, right? Maximum time they are asking to an examination. A tube with the both ends open into the atmosphere. See, both ends are open. It means that atmospheric pressure is acting, right? Both ends are open. It means that, right? Okay, the atmospheric pressure is acting, and this is a case of the atmospheric pressure, right? How we are going to deal with this? Let's see. One is partially filled with the water, and second, right, with the oil. So a U-tube, both open and both ends to the atmosphere, is partially filled with the water. Okay. Oil which is immiscible with the water is poured on the one side until it stands at the distance of 10 mm about the water level. Okay. Oil is filled 10 mm above the water level. This is the figure given. Initially water level, right, with respect to the point C was 65 mm. Right. Now when from the left arm of the fluid, from the left arm of the capillary tube, U-shaped capillary tube, if oil is immersed, suddenly the water level rises. And from initial level, it rises to the double of it. But still, after rising double as compared to the initial level, still it is 10 mm below. Right? Still it is 10 mm below the reference level of the oil. That is what? Meanwhile, the water rises by 65 mm. Okay. Now what we need to calculate? We need to calculate the density of the oil. We are going to use one of the applications of the Pascal's law. At one surface level, the pressure is going to be same at all points. So if I'm talking about this surface level, right, at this surface level at all points, the pressure is going to be same. It means if I'm talking about point A, if I'm talking about point B, right, again the pressure is going to be same. So let's say pressure at point B, that is equivalent to pressure at point C. Okay, I think this is point C. Okay, now if I'm talking about B side, till point B, if I'm talking about the left arm of the U-shaped tube, till point B only oil is filled. So can I say end is open? So what will be the pressure at the depth B? That is P atmospheric pressure plus density of oil. Why? Because for this much depth, the oil is filled. If fluid is filled, then its respective density should be taken into the calculation. G, and what is the height up to which oil is filled? 65, 65, 10. It's 130 into plus 10, that is 140 mm. B side is over. Now we are moving on forward to the C side. At C, we are having the two water levels. The water is filled up to the height of 130. So here P atmospheric pressure plus density of water into G into height of 130. Right. So this P atmosphere is going to get cancelled. Rho of oil into G of 1 of 40 is equal to density of water into G of 1 of 30. G is going to get cancelled. Right. Okay. So what we are going to get? Density of the oil into 140. That is equal to density of water into 130. So density of oil, it is going to come upon as density of water into 13 by 14. Now what is the density of the water given? Okay, now here we want to take, okay, here we need answer into kg per meter cube. Okay, we need answer into the kg per meter cube. How we are going to solve that? Directly we are going to replace, right, the density of the water. That is going to be 1000 into 13 by 14. So here the density of the oil, it is going to come upon as 928 kg per meter cube. Okay. This is the perfect answer for this specific question. Right, this is the perfect answer for this specific question. Okay, now let's move on to the next question onto it. The two non-mixing liquids of densities rho and n rho are put into the container. The height of the each liquid is h. A solid cylinder of length L and density D is put into the container. The cylinder floats with its vertical length rho L in the denser liquid. Then the density of the liquid. Okay, this is directly based on the law of flotation. So we are going to see that into the after parts, right? Okay, first of all, we're going to see one of the applications, right? The area of the cross section of the wider tube is 800 centimeter cube. Here the area of the cross section is 800 centimeter square. I'm sorry. If mass of the 12 kg is placed on it, it means how much amount of the force? 12g amount. Its weight, right? Amount of the force is applied. The difference into the heights of the level h, okay, in the tube is what? Okay, the difference into the height. Okay. So we want to calculate the difference in between those. Initial was this, final is this, and we have to calculate the difference between. The area of the cross section, it is mentioned as, okay, how we are going to use the Pascal's law. See, the amount of the pressure that is applied here, that is going to equally distribute into the all directions. Right. So what happens here? Here amount of the right pressure, that is equal to force per unit area. So here whatever we can say F1 by A1, that is equal to F2 by A2. Okay. F1 by A1, that will be equivalent to, right, F2 by A2. So here, right, the force applied, that is mg upon the area, right, that is 800 centimeters square. So that is going to be the pressure, that is rho into g into h. If I'm talking about the water, suppose, right, then rho is 1, g is 980 into h. Okay, mass is 12, but here I think g is going to get cancelled, so directly we can reach up to the answers. Rho into g into h, this is mass into g, right, whole divided by 800, g is going to get cancelled. Replacing all of those values, the 15 centimeter depth, it is going to come upon as a perfect answer of the integer based question. Now very simple, right? Small piston of the hydraulic lift. There is a small piston of the hydraulic lift as the area 0.20 meters square. A car weighing this much ton. What is the right mg of the car? That is 1.2 into 10 to the power 4 tons or a newton, sits on the rack. The large piston has the area A2, that is equivalent to 0.90 meters square. How much force is applied to the small piston to support the car? F1 by A1, that is equivalent to F2 by A2, right? F1 by A1, that is equivalent to F2 by A2. If I'm talking about the F1, right, then it is 1.2 into 10 to the power 4, right? Hydraulic lift has an area, larger piston, smaller piston area is given, larger piston area, okay. This has the area of 0.90. This is force on the smaller piston, and smaller piston has the area of 0.20, right? So what is going to happen? 2.4 into 10 to the power 4 whole divided by 9, that is equal to force on the smaller piston. Force on the smaller piston. Okay, so now this is going to be approximately force on the smaller piston. Okay, that is equal to 24 into 10 to the power 3 whole divided by 9. 9 2s are 18, 2.6 something into 10 to the power 3 Newton. This is the force on the smaller Newton, approx, right? This is how, right, the sums are solved using the Pascal's law. What is the pressure of the swimmer 10 meter below the surface of the lake? 10 meter below. Right. Pressure at the depth, that is equal to atmospheric pressure plus rho of g of h. Right. This is 1 into 10 to the power 5 plus density is 10 to the power 3 into 10 into 10. Right. Okay, so it is 2 into 10 to the power 5 Newton per meter square. This much amount of the pressure that is acting at the depth to a swimmer who is swimming 10 meter below the surface level. Okay, 10 meter below the surface level. Now, till now, right, we were only discussing about the static containers, right? Static containers. What happens to the what happens to the pressure, how it is calculated into the case of the accelerated containers, right? Into the case of the accelerated containers, how it is calculated, and that thing we are going to discuss it soon. Okay, that thing we are going to discuss it soon. Now, what happens here, right? Into the case of the accelerated containers, there are multiple cases. Suppose the container is kept on the surface and this is a fluid and it is accelerating into the upward direction. This is the first case. Okay. Second, this is a container, right? Okay. It is kept on the surface. It is accelerated into this direction, into the right side. Okay. Third application. Okay. The container is kept, it is given the acceleration into y direction also, and it is given acceleration into the x direction also, right? Sorry for this, right? Acceleration is given into the x direction also, into the y direction also. In this case, right, how this acceleration constraints are calculated and how pressure is there. And the fourth is the rotation of the container. Okay, suppose the angular velocity is given, okay, to the container, then how it differs. So these are the cases of these accelerated containers, right? Previously we have discussed the cases of the static containers, and this thing we are going to discuss into the detail. This is very chit-put things, we are going to complete it. Okay, so now let's move on to the cases of the accelerated containers. There are some examples in which, right, accelerated containers are also there. The concepts of accelerated containers, right? Accelerated container. Suppose let us take an example. This is a container, right? If it is a static, right, then liquid is like this way. Suppose it is getting accelerated in this direction. This is the case of the static container. So it's like this way. Suppose if it is getting accelerated into the horizontal direction, then what will happen? Right? Then as because of pseudo force, right, as because of the pseudo effect, water will push into the backward direction, right? So the new surface will be like this way, right? New surface will be like this way, right? So this will be the horizontal acceleration given to the containers, right? The horizontal acceleration given to the containers, right? It will act like this way. So in this case, suppose the surface is making some angle theta with respect to, right? So if I'm applying the pseudo effect, then this will be the acceleration of the frame, right? This is the G, right? Okay. And this one is the theta, right? This one is the theta. So in that case, if I want to remind it all, then we are having tan theta, that is equal to A by G, and A is equal to G of tan theta. This is the formula you all are aware of, right? This is the formula of the accelerated containers you all are aware of. Apart from this, right, we are having the another case of the vertical acceleration also, and lots of things are there, right? Apart from this, we are having, right, so this is the horizontal acceleration of the containers, right? So suppose, if you want to move that with what acceleration, what will be the effective acceleration? This is a theta, and this will also be the theta. G effective, right, that will be under root of, right, this one, that is a square plus g square, right? And if you want to know, right, this will be the situation when it is horizontally accelerated, and if you need to calculate the, right, this will be the H1, then pressure at the point P, that will be equivalent to P atmosphere plus rho G of H1, and this H1 can be evaluated using the direct formula, right? With the acceleration of the container, we are having the rotations of the container and torque, but those are direct formulas only, right? And even they hold the less weightage, but it's okay, right? I showed you all with the one simple example so that the student might not get might not have a negative thought into the mind that Indrajit sir, right, skip that part. Okay, so this was the accelerated container. Now let's move on to the next part of this topic. Thank you. What does the Archimedes principle states? It's a very simple thing, right? A very simple thing. Okay, the amount of weight, right, that is immersed inside the fluid, that is equal to, right, the fluid getting displaced. Okay, it's a very simple thing. Okay, I will explain these things into the detail, but first of all, let's move on to the specific visualization, right? The weight that is immersed inside the liquid or a fluid. Suppose, let us take an example. If m kg is there, it is right, okay, immersed inside the liquid. The same amount of the fluid gets displaced, and here, right, comes the concept of buoyant force. What actual the buoyant force is, right? What actual the buoyant force is. Let us take an example. Suppose this is the water level, the surface level, right? Okay. Whenever any object is immersed inside the fluid, now, or let us take an example. If I'm talking about the water, whenever the object is immersed inside the water, there exists a force that fluid always applies to the object. Always. That force, it is known as buoyant force, right? That force, it is known as buoyant force, right? And the property of applying this force, it is known as buoyancy, right? Buoyant force, students, please, right? I'm again highlighting this term because it is quite helpful, right? And it is important also. The reason is buoyant force is only responsible, right, for the particles, right, those who are floating at a specific depth. Buoyant force is only responsible for an objects, those who are moving on the surface of the water, like steamers and ships. Buoyant force is only the responsible, right, for a particle who is getting sinking inside, right, indirectly maybe, right? So this is in the most important terms into the fluid while dealing with the Archimedes principle, right, and some of the concepts of the Stokes laws and viscosity, right? So buoyant force, just keep one thing into your mind. The force, right, applied by a fluid towards an object, okay, there is always a resistance, right? See, it's a very simple example. Suppose, right, without any invitation, if I'm moving on, if I'm entering any, right, X person's house, right, then it will be considered as a trespassing, right? And that trespassing is a, right, legal, what we can say, it's a mistake, right? Okay, it will be a legal action against you all, right? Similarly, if I am entering without permission in anyone's premises, right, it is considered as a trespassing, the legal crime. The same, if I'm entering the premises of the water, then obviously, right, the water, the fluid, right, is going to provide some kind of the resistance against this trespassing of an object, right, which is getting immersed inside it. That property, it is known as, that force, that resistance water is applying towards an object, it is known as buoyant force. Now, what does an Archimedes principle state? It states that, right, an object immersed inside the fluid an object that is immersed inside the fluid that is equivalent to, right, the amount of the water displaced, right, amount of water displaced. The weight of an object immersed inside the water that is equivalent to amount of the water displaced. Second most important terms, buoyant force acts, right, only when the water is getting displaced. Without that, we are not able to identify, right, whether it is acting or not, how much amount it is acting, and lots of things are there, right? So this is a simple case of the Archimedes principle, right? And with this, right, we are having the law of flotation, a very simple thing. Suppose, let us take again an example. It is shown into the visualization. This law of flotation, right, and Archimedes principle. These two things are right quite important for the underwater vehicles like submarine and all of that things, right? Okay, this law and the Archimedes principle is behind it, right? So it plays a quite a prominent role. Okay, now see. Suppose again, if I'm talking about, this is a water level, right? This is a water surface, right? Now suppose. What does the law of flotation states? Three examples I want to take. The object that is floating near the surface, the object that is floating at the height h, right, and the object that is at depth. Basically, if I'm talking about for this specific object, two kind of forces are always acting, right? Two kind of forces are always acting. First of all, it's weight. Weight is acting into the downward direction. This weight is acting into the downward direction, and this weight is acting into the downward direction. There is another force which is known as buoyant force, right? That is always provided. It is a kind of a resistance that is provided by the fluids towards an object, right? So yeah, if I'm talking about this object, obviously, right, the buoyant force is acting into the upward direction. If I'm talking about this object, obviously the buoyant force is acting in the upward direction. If I'm talking about this object, right, then buoyant force is acting into the upward direction. Then students, what is the difference between these three cases? All are equal, na? This is also floating at the right at the surface, and it is at the rest. This is at some depth h, but obviously it is on the equilibrium, it is at the rest. It is also, this third object is also synced, right? Okay, and while touching the seabed, this is also at the rest. And what is the difference between these two? These three, in these three cases. So in first case, the weight of the object, it is quite greater than the buoyant force. Here, the buoyant force is quite negligible. So because of that, I'm extremely sorry. Just hold on, right? Just hold on. Okay, not this. See, here, I'm extremely sorry. Here, the weight of the object is quite less than buoyant force. Buoyant force is of the maximum value. Weight is quite less than buoyant force, right? That's why the particle is floating on the surface. So in this case, can I say it is, right, floating, right, on surface? It is floating on the surface. In second case, suppose if it is floating at some depth h, so at that time the weight is balanced by the buoyant force, right? On this principle submarine works, right? On this principle submarine works. If weight is balanced by the buoyant force, right, then all upward and downward forces are going to balance. It means summation of all y forces will be 0, and according to the conditions of the equilibrium, the net acceleration along the y will be 0. If this second condition is satisfied, then object can float at specific depth inside the or beneath the water level, right? Beneath the water level. Now what about the third case? This was the first case. This is the second case. This is the third case. Now weight exceed more than buoyant force, right? Buoyant force is acting, but it is quite negligible as compared to this weight. So in this case, the object sinks, right? So this is having the deep relation with the Archimedes principle, right? If you are immersing an object inside the fluid, right? Okay, after, like, suppose, let us take an example. If I'm having a spear in my hand, suppose it is, right, immersed, it is getting immersed inside the liquid, right? It is getting immersed inside the liquid. Then what will happen? We will be having the three possibilities. See, if it is getting immersed inside a liquid, it is for sure, according to the Archimedes principle, the same amount of the water will get displaced. But again, we are having the three possibilities: whether it will float on the, above the surface level, right, or it will be like float it, or it will be remain in equilibrium at some depth h, or it will get sinked. So these are the three possibilities, and that is known as law of flotation, right? That's the law of flotation. So guys, remember this thing, right? This and Archimedes principle, these two things are, right, we are going to use a lot, right? We are really going to use a lot in this. Now there are some cases, right? Okay, we will understand these cases of the Archimedes principle with the some of the examples. Okay, so let's move on to the first part. First, suppose I'm talking about the cube, right? I'm showing you all an example of a cube, right? A cube that is having length L, right? So the volume of the cube, can I say, right? I'm talking about the cube. So volume of the cube, that is area into length, right? Area into length. The first case, right? How to apply? See, this all are the cases, right, we are seeing, in which I will explain you all that how to apply this principle to get the correct answers, right? Suppose in this question it is mentioned that the object, that it is of mass m, right? Density of the object is rho 0. It is immersed inside the fluid. The length of the object is L. The x part of the length is getting immersed and the object floats, right, among the entire cube, right? The situation is like this way, right? I'm showing you all a cube, right? This is a cube. Let us take an example, right? The x part of the cube is getting floated. You can see, you can understand this stuff. The x part, this length of the cube is getting floated. Right? Now in this case, how we are going to find the value of x? In this question it is mentioned. See, density of the fluid is rho. Let us take an example, it is rho L. Now how we are going to? First step, system is in equilibrium. Summation of all y forces are 0 as system, right, is at rest. Summation of all y forces is 0. It means the system is at rest, right? So very simple thing. It is at the rest now. It means its weight is balanced by the buoyant force. Its weight, it is balanced by the buoyant force. What does the weight states? It's m into g. What does the buoyant force states? That is density of the fluid into volume immersed inside the fluid. Now here's the point where students always used to commit a mistake. Always. They used to apply the buoyant force on the entire object. No. Buoyant force only act to that much part of an object that is immersed inside the fluid. Here you can see the entire part is not immersed inside the fluid. Only the x part is immersed. So it means that buoyant force is only acting to this much part. Right? The L total is L. The L minus x part is outside the L. Right? So it means that it is mg, and that is equal to density of the liquid right, into C. I have written into the formula volume immersed, right, into G. Can I replace this M as density of the object into volume of the entire object? So this is always considered in air. This is always considered in air. This is what about the fluid is, and we need to compare this too, right? Density of the liquid, volume immersed into G. So this G is going to cancel. Density of object, volume of entire object, density of liquid, volume immersed. So it is density of object. If I'm talking about the entire object in air, can I say it is area into length? Now, density of liquid, right? Area will remain same, but what part of L that is immersed inside the water? X. So here what we are getting, area will get cancelled. So density of object by density of liquid, that is equal to, right, into L, that will be equivalent to the value of X. This is how, using the law of flotation and Archimedes principle, right, this X is calculated. Second case, suppose, right, this is liquid 1, right, and this is liquid 2. If I'm taking two liquids, right, this is the second case, right, I'm showing you all how to apply this, right, okay. Suppose this is a liquid 1 and this is a liquid 2, right. Suppose object is inside the fluid by X, object is inside the fluid by Y. In first case it is X, in second case it is Y, right. In first case it is X, in second case, right, it is Y. Then how we are going to calculate, this kind of questions are there, how we are going to calculate the ratios of this densities of the two fluids? In both of the cases, right, if object is immersed inside the water, it means the same amount of the water has been displaced. If the same amount of the water has been displaced, it means the buoyant force is acting. And if there is a presence of buoyant force and object is stationary, it means according to the law of flotation, weight is getting balanced. So here in this case, weight that will be equivalent to mg. Here in this case, weight will be equivalent to mg, and that will be equivalent to buoyant force. So here, can we write density of the object into volume into length? It is density of the fluid 2, right, into, sorry, not volume, this will be area, and this will be area into X, right. So here density of the object into L is equal to delta 2 into, this is Y, I'm sorry, Y. Can I consider this as equation number 1? Yes. Here density of the object into area into L, that is density of the fluid 1, right, into area into X. Again area is going to cancel, density of L into density of 1 into X. Can I consider this as equation number 2? Comparing 1 and 2, right, I'm getting rho 1 by rho 2, that is equal to X by Y. This is how we are using the Archimedes principle. These are the two most important cases. Now let's move on to the third case. Suppose there is only one container. Only one container is there. The same container. In the previous case, what we saw, see, first of all, we saw the case of only one single fluid, a single fluid. After that, we moved on to the comparison between the two fluids, right? The comparison of the buoyant force between, right? Comparison between the two fluids, right? Right. Now we are moving forward to the third case in which there is only one, right? There is a presence of only one container in which two fluids are present. This is a fluid of density 1. This is fluid of density 2. Object is immersed inside the fluid, right? X part is there like here and Y part is like this way. Sometimes instead of X and Y, volume is also given. So it is a kind of an alternate thing, right? Okay, you should be aware of. If we need to deal with the volume, then answers will be quite easy. Evaluation part would also be right, less confusing, right? And suppose if you need to deal with this distances, okay, it happens. We are doing that stuff. So in this case, what will happen? Two fluids are there. Okay, density of an object inside the air. If I'm talking about an air, right? If I am talking about an air, then what will happen? The density of the object is rho, right? And length is L. Object is in between two fluids. This is fluid 1 and this is fluid 2. Object is in between two fluids, right? So in this case, right, fluid 2 is also applying the bind force, right? Fluid 1 is also applying the bind force. Bind force is applied, right, by both of them towards an object. It means that according to the law of flotation, we were balancing this stuff, right? So this will be as because of fluid 1 and 2 both. So weight in the air is mg. This will be the bind force, right? Okay, this will be volume of 1 into g plus rho 2 volume of 2 into g. Suppose if I'm replacing this thing, that density of the object into area into length, that is density of 1 into area into x plus density of 2 into area into y. This area is going to cancel, right? So density of object into L, that is density of 1 into x plus density of 2 into y. Okay, this is how Archimedes principle is applied, and this is a third case. Fourth case, suppose you have seen a float. Inner radius is R, outer radius is capital R. You've seen the float, that tube, whenever you used to move on to the water park or something, right? Then you're using this float, right, to enjoy the waves, right? What happens when this float is completely immersed inside the water? Another case, float is completely immersed. Again, obviously, if it is in equilibrium, then it's a very simple thing. The weight will be balanced by bind force. Now, this is entirely inside the object. So this is inside the fluid. So this will be the part of air. Density of the object into volume of an object into G, it's okay. Density of the liquid, that is volume inside the liquid. Now there is a difference. If it is in air, right, if it is in air, then this much amount of the mass will not be considered. This much part is hollow, it is vacant. Tube is a kind of a 3D structure, right, but this much part is vacant, right? So whenever this tube is kept into the air, right, this place will not hold the mass. But when this float is entirely immersed inside the fluid, the water is getting displaced from this hollow space. So it means it will hold the mass inside the fluid. In the air, this space is vacant. It is not going to hold a mass. So while considering, right, if we are considering this part in air, so this thing will be subtracted. But when the same float is immersed inside the water, okay, or the fluid is getting displaced through it. On immersing inside the water, the fluid is getting displaced through it. So it means, yes, the bind force is acting and it will hold the mass. Four by 3 pi capital R cube minus small r cube. Density of the fluid 4 by 3 pi capital R cube. This thing is going to cancel, right? So finally we are having the density of the object by density of the fluid, that is equal to R cube by R cube minus small r cube, right? This is how Archimedes principle is applied in right, law of flotation is used. Okay, so these are some of the cases, right, of the Archimedes principle, right, and the law of flotation. Now let's move on to the, right, some of the important examples related to it. And apart from this thing, right, we are going to see this. It's okay. Now there is a concept of an apparent weight. Now what does this apparent weight means? Okay, so let's move on to this question, right? A crown made of a gold and copper. Okay, this question is quite different, right? As we discussed, we saw all of those cases, right? Okay, this question is a bit different. In all of those cases, I always used to say that according to the law of flotation, the weight is always balanced by the buoyant force. But here, in that case, loss was not considered. And generally, this kind of sums are asked on basis of loss of weight. Loss of weight means what? It is weighting x in air, but less than x inside the fluid. Let's see this question to understand that stuff. A crown made of gold and copper weighs 200 gram in air and 198 gram in water. There is one crown. It is made up of gold and copper both. Right? Weight in air, that is equivalent to 110 gram, and weight in water, right, that is 12 gram. Here is the loss of 12 grams. If I'm talking about then, right, loss, then it is equivalent to 12 gram, right? As if we are comparing the data of air and water, then we are having the loss of 12 gram. When it is immersed inside the fluid, right, the 12 gram of the object is getting lost. Now what we need to calculate? We need to calculate what is an actual weight of a gold inside the crown. Very simple thing. Weight is balanced by the buoyant force. But here we are having the two kind of the objects. So density of the gold into volume of gold plus density of in copper into volume of the copper, that is equivalent to 210 gram. Right? G will get cancelled. So can I say this is okay, density of the gold is 9. This is 19.3. It's 19.3 into Vg plus 8.5 into Vc, that is equivalent to 210 gram. Can I consider this as equation number 1? Yes. But this is all about what actual thing is going on in air. What about when it is immersed inside the fluid? There is a loss of 12 gram. So whenever it is immersed inside the liquid, right, density of the liquid, volume of gold, density of the liquid, volume of copper, that is equivalent to 12 gram. So it means that density of the liquid into Vg plus Vc, that will be equivalent to 12 gram. Can I consider in gram, right, density as 1? So what will be Vg plus Vc? Vg plus Vc, that will be equivalent to 12. Can I consider this as equation number 2? Solving 1 and 2, what we get? Solving 1 and 2, right? Okay. Can I multiply this as, okay, 19.3 Vg plus 8.5 Vc, that is equal to 210, right? And if I'm multiplying 19.3 Vg plus 19.3 Vc, that will be equivalent to 19.3 into 12. Solving this, right, we are getting Vg as 10 and Vc as 2. If I'm multiplying with its weight, right, I'm getting approximately, sorry, if I'm multiplying with its density, approximately I'm getting, right, the mass as density into volume, that is 10 into 19.3, right, it is equivalent to density into volume, and that is 193 gram. So this is another case, right, okay, in which we are using the Archimedes. See, same na, right? Okay, air and fluid we are compared. right? We've used the concepts of the right Archimedes principle and the law of flotation, right? Same thing, but there is only one exception. What here? Loss needs to be considered, right? So like this, we are having the another example, right? So this I'm giving you all in the homework. You can answer this stuff. You can answer this question beneath the video, right? Beneath the video. Okay, now see, the density of the steel is 9,000 kg per meter cube. Density of steel, that is 9,000 kg per meter cube. And the density of the water is 1,000. If a cube of a steel, that is 0.100 meter, on each side is placed in a tank of water and weighed while under the water, then what will be its apparent weight? Right? What will be its apparent weight? Right? What is the length of the cube? Length of the cube, that is 0.00. I'm sorry, length of the cube is 0.1 meter. Length of the cube is 0.1 meter. Then what is the volume of the cube into the air? That is 0.1 into 0.1 into 0.1, 10 to the power minus 3 meter cube. This is the volume of the cube into the air. Now we need to calculate the apparent weight of this cube, right? Now what is an formula of the apparent weight of the cube, right? What actual is the formula of the apparent weight of the cube? So what will be the formula of apparent weight of an object? See, the apparent weight of an object, that is equal to its actual weight, right, minus buoyant force. If I am considering the actual weight, can I say it is density of the object into the volume of the object into G minus density of the liquid into velocity, volume of an object immersed inside the liquid into G, right? So here Vg are constant, so apparent will be, right, okay, apparent weight, yes. So this will be density of an object, right? It's approximately 8,000, right, into V0 into G, right? So this apparent weight would be 8,000 into 10 to the power minus 3 into G, right? So this will be get cancelled. It will be equivalent to 80. Nearly equivalent to 80 if you are considering, right, G value as 10. Right, if we are considering G as 9.8, then it will be approximately equivalent to 78.8 Newton. Right, approximately equivalent to 78.8 Newton. So this is a new concept of the apparent weight that is also used into the, right, this laws, the Archimedes principle and the law of flotation. A hollow metal cube, another question, a hollow metal cube of 1 meter, length of the cube is 1 meter and it is a mass of 600 kg. How deep it will sink when placed in the weight of the water? How deep it will sink? It means they are asking about the position where W will be equivalent to FB. How deep it will sink, it doesn't mean we are going to find out the depth of the ocean. No. When it will start sinking, right, the things will be not in our control. Okay. The things, the calculations are in our control up to what moment? Up to the moment where weight is balanced by the buoyant force. Right. So in this case, can I say this weight, right, that is equivalent to buoyant force, right, or this mg, right, that is pressure into area, right? Force, can I replace this force as pressure into this specific area, right? So now, okay, this mg will be 600 into 10, right, and that will be rho gh into area, right? Okay. Now this will be, this is going to be the same. So this will be 6,000 and this will be rho will be 1000 into 10 into h. So here h, maximum it can sink up to the 0.6 meter. Maximum it can sink up to the 0.6 meter, right? Suppose this is a water level, okay, at the depth of 0.6 meter, the weight is balanced by its buoyant force. Beyond this, object will get sink. Right? So this is what all the Archimedes principle. And before moving on to the concept of this conservation of mass, right, first of all I want to tell you all are completely aware of how many types of fluids are there, how many types of, not fluids, how many types of flows are there. The one that is the streamline flow, the turbulent flow, right? So this kind of things you all are completely aware of. Even you all are aware of these values of the Reynolds number, right? In between 2000 and 3000, greater than 3000, it is a turbulent flow, right? These things you all are aware of. But don't get worried, the concept of the streamline and turbulent flow, again we are going to see into the Bernoulli's equation. Okay? But here, what actual the conservation of mass is. Let us understand this visualization. Suppose this is a part 1, right? And this is part 2. In between part 1 and in between part 2, something is common. In between part 1 and part 2, something is common. What it is? Mass entering the pipe, that is equivalent to same, it is equivalent to mass leaving the pipe. Mass entering the pipe is nearly equivalent to the amount of mass leaving. That's the conservation of mass. Now if this amount of the mass that is entering is equivalent to leaving, then how we are going to identify the right variations, right? Okay, we are seeing this variation. Now let us take a very simple example. If the area of this much part is A1, and if area of the smaller part, right, it is A2, there is a difference into the areas of the cross section, na? Right? If there is a difference into the area of cross section, then obviously the rate of the flow of the fluid, right, will get affected. Here the velocity of the fluid will be something else. Here the velocity of the fluid will be something else. Right? Here the velocity of the fluid will be something else, and here it will be something else. Then and see, if you want to conserve this mass, right, then there should be some relation between, right, area and velocity. There should be some relation between area and velocity. Then and then it should be, then and then it is possible, right, that the amount of the mass that is entering from the one side of the pipe, the same amount of the mass it is leaving on the another side. So using this relation, kindly consider as no loss. So now you all are aware of what actually the conservation of mass is. Now let's move on, right? Okay, we are now aware that we need to find, right, if we need to conserve the mass, then we need to find the relation between area and velocity, and it is for sure also. Why? I'm giving you the example of the day-to-day life. I'm giving you all the example of the day-to-day life, right? See, whenever we are having a pipe into a hand, and if we are covering the half part of the pipe with your thumb, okay, then the velocity of the fluid suddenly get increased, right? If you are removing the thumb, again the velocity will get decreased. So if you are decreasing the area, the velocity is getting increased, and if you are increasing the area, the velocity is getting decreased. So there is some relation between area and velocity, and that is all about, that is what this continuity, the equation of continuity is all about. Mass is conserved. It means mass that is entering equal to mass leaving. Mass that is entering, that is equivalent to mass leaving. Density into volume. Density into volume. Suppose this part is having the area A1, this part is having the area A2, At this part velocity is v1 and then this part velocity is v2. So can I say density, volume can I consider as area of the cross section into length L1, area of the cross section, right, into L2. Dividing the times on the either side, right, dividing the times on the either side, right, here it will be area, right, okay, hello, I think as because of this visualization, right, this thing is going on, right, okay, so here it will be area A2, okay, so here, okay, so it's rho 1 A1 V1 that is equivalent to rho 2 A2 V2. This is the actual equation of continuity. This is an actual equation of continuity. The actual equation of continuity. But in this case, right, suppose the density, right, at the entrance point of the pipe is equivalent to, right, the density at the leaving, while it is leaving, right, then we can say suppose if rho 1 that is equivalent to rho 2, then and then we can say A1 V1 that is equivalent to A2 V2 and AV is equal to constant and A is inversely proportional to V. Generally, if you've seen many sessions, then they used to consider AV is equal to constant, A is inversely proportional to V. This as the equation of continuity. But wrong. Actual equation of continuity is this. If rho 1 is equivalent to rho 2, then and then we can say that yes, A is inversely proportional to V. Else, we need to consider this density. Let's have an example to understand this. Right, let's have an example to understand this. Suppose we are having this kind of the configuration, and this is a very famous question, right? Okay, this is a very famous question, okay, that you all are aware of. Okay, suppose this is a cross section area of A, right? This is a cross section area of A by 2 and this is A by 2. Here the rate of the velocity of the fluid, it is given as 10 centimeter per second. Here we are having 2 centimeter per second, right? At that point we are having 2 centimeter per second, right? Okay, let's change this stuff, right? I'm sorry, again I'm writing this question. Suppose this area of cross section is A, the velocity of the fluid is 10 centimeter per second. Here the area is A by 2, right? The velocity, consider it as a 3 centimeter per second. Here suppose it is A by 4. What will be the rate of the, what will be the right speed of the fluid? Again we are using the equation of the continuity. This will be the entrance point and these two are the leaving. So can I consider AV that is equal to A1 V1 plus A2 V2. Now see density, right, while when the fluid enters the pipe, the density is rho and it is the same, it is equal while it is leaving, right? So in that case I can consider the rho will get cancelled. I'm using the direct equation as AV. So AV that will be equivalent to A1 V1 plus A2 V2. A into 10 that is equal to V1, that is 3 into A by 2 plus A by 4 into V. We need to calculate V. This A will get cancelled, right? So 10 that will be equivalent to 3 by 2, right, plus V by 4. Okay, so it's 20 minus 3 by 2, that will be equivalent to V by 4, right? So it's 17 by 2, that is equivalent to V by 4. V is equal to 34 centimeter per second, right? So from this, the velocity of the fluid, we are getting it as a 34 centimeter per second. So this kind of the equations of the continuities are used, right? Even this is also used with the Bernoulli's equation. Okay. Now, let's move on to the some sums related to it. The blood is flowing at the rate of 200 centimeter per second. Now see, directly rate is given. In a capillary of the cross section area 0.5, the velocity of the, see, area of the cross section of the capillary is 0.5 meter per square, right? The rate is already given, right, as 200 centimeter cube per second, right? Okay, then what will be the velocity in meter per second? Okay, see, according to the equation of continuity, AV, that will be equivalent to rate. Now rate is 200 centimeter cube per second, but we need answer in per second, right? Okay, per second. So can I convert this thing into 200 into 10 to the power minus 3 cube per second, right? Area will be 0.5. If I need to consider, I'm sorry, this will be plus 3, right? Just hold on, there is a bit of conversation. Okay, first of all, let's calculate this stuff. Okay, don't get worried. Okay, what is an area? 0.5. Okay, let's replace 0.5 into velocity. Rate is 200, so it is 200 into 10 to the power minus 6 meter cube per second, right? So this will be V is equal to 2 into 10 to the power minus 4 whole divided by 0.5, right? So we are getting the value, this is meter per second. Okay, don't get worried, we will convert it into the centimeter per second. That is 2 divided by 0.5, that is 4 into 10 to the power minus 4, right, meter per second. If I am converting this into that is 4 into 10 to the power minus 4 into 10 to the power 3 per second. So V is equal to 4 into 10 to the power minus 1 per second. V is equal to 0.4 of per second, right? Using the equation of continuity, we got that answer, right? The flow of the water in the Healy area is an example of this streamline flow. Okay, now you all get confused what actually the streamline flow is. Streamline flow means what? I'm taking 3 points. Suppose this is a pipe. I'm taking the 3 points. Point A, point B, point C. Now I am talking about a imaginary fluidic particle. I am talking about imaginary fluidic particle. Imaginary fluidic particle. Suppose it is at this point. First of all, it is crossing through point A, then it is crossing through point B, and then it is crossing through point C. When this flow will be considered at this streamline? Suppose the velocity of the particle while it is entering the pipe, it is P. And when it is at point A, the velocity is fixed. That is A tangent to the path. Suppose the same fluidic particle is crossing through point B. Velocity at that point is fixed, tangent to the path. Suppose it is crossing through point C. Velocity at that point is fixed, tangent to the path. We are not interested in the amount of the velocity particle is having while entering into the pipe. No. When it is reaching at the point A, velocity will be VA. When it will reach at the point B, velocity will be VB. When it will reach at the point C, velocity will be VC. This kind of the fluid is a streamline. Right. What is a turbulent flow? Harsh flow, flood, turbulent flow, tsunami, turbulent flow. So do you think in the hilly area there is a possibility of a streamline flow? No. False. Flow is always turbulent. Flow is always turbulent into the hilly area. Right? Always turbulent. Right? It is always turbulent into the hilly area. Right? A straight or a curved path such that tangent to at any point gives the direction of the flow of the fluid. Right now we have discussed tangent to any point that shows the direction of the the flow of the fluid. This kind of the flow, it is known as the streamline. If we want to understand this stuff, let's take an example of the Dabur ad. Right, what it states: viscosity. First of all, in simple terms, if we want to write resistance to flow of fluids, a simple definition. Okay, in thousands of the resources, lots of definitions are there, but in the simple terms, if I want to define the viscosity, then right, resistance to its own flow, it is defined as the viscosity. Let us take a very simple example to understand. Suppose if I am having two jugs in my hand, one is full of water, second is full of honey. Right? If I'm pouring out the water, obviously it is going to flow immediately along the surface. But on the other side, if I'm pouring out the honey, this kind of the layers will form, and slowly it will try to flow along the surface. Now, what is an actual difference between these two examples? One fluid is highly viscous as compared to another one. Dabur honey is highly viscous as compared to water. Right? So in this case, there exists a kind of a resistance. Right? Sometimes fluid itself resists its own flow, as because it is highly viscous. That property, it is known as viscosity, and it acts in terms of a force that is known as viscous force. Suppose if I'm talking about a Dabur, right, it is forming lots of layers like this way. Actually it was flowing with some velocity, but as because of the property of the internal resistance, some layers are formed like this way. Right? So here, the viscous force, right? The viscous force, extremely sorry for this, acting is directly proportional to the area of the cross section. Higher will be the area of cross section, higher will be the viscous force. First part. And second, the viscous force, right, F, is directly proportional to the velocity gradient, the decrease in the velocity with respect to the layer. So F is directly proportional to area into dV by dx. Removing this proportionality sign, we are having the eta A, right, dV by dx. This eta, it is known as coefficient of viscosity. Coefficient of viscosity. Here actually negative sign appears. This negative sign shows it is resisting its flow, right, fluid's flow. So indirectly the viscous force is nothing else but a measurement of resistance, right, to the flow of fluids. This is actually all about. Sometimes in some of the cases this right, force is also compared, right, to the static frictional force. Right? Now, Stoke's law. Right? What does it state? It's a very simple thing. See, we are not moving on to that much. Right? See, we are whatever it is needed from the exam point of view, we are covering through all of those stuff. Else, to complete this entire lecture in this much amount of the time, it is quite difficult. right? As you all are, right, as you all know, to complete this, right, because it's contained lots of things, but whatever, right, the important topics are there, right? From the weightage point of view, we are covering all of those stuff, right? So don't get worried, whatever things will come after this series, right, we are going to see that into the details also. Don't get worried, but according to the exam point of view, from exam point of view, right, whatever the things are going on, we are covering it fully. Stokes law. Whenever a small spherical ball, it is dropped inside the capillary tube into the liquid, one drag force is acting that will try to resist this flow. When a spherical ball is dropped inside the fluid, when a spherical ball is dropped inside, right, the fluid, when a spherical ball is dropped inside the fluid, right, one drag force is acting. That drag force, right, tries to balance all the vertical forces so that, right, this particle can move with the constant velocity into the downward direction, that is terminal velocity. But what actual the Stokes law is? The presence of this drag force is the Stokes law. That drag force, right, okay, is directly proportional to, right, radius of the capillary tube V, right. Finally the equation is 6 pi r eta V, right, 6 pi r eta V, and using the terms, this is the drag force, this is mg, right, okay, bind in upward direction. So in this case we are having, right, the equation of the terminal velocity is 2 by 9, right, r square g rho minus rho 0 by eta. Okay, so it's all about whenever the particle is dropped. You can see in this visualization, when the particle is dropped from the top height, right, it will try to move with the constant velocity, as because of all, see, net acceleration in the y direction 0, it means that doesn't mean the object is stationary. It means all the y forces are balanced and object is moving with the constant velocity. That constant velocity, it is the terminal velocity. So Stokes law is all about that drag force, and this is another equation of the terminal velocity, right? Let's move on to questions related to it. Two small, see, in Odisha 2000, in NEET 2019, this question is asked. Two small spherical metal balls having equal masses are made from the materials of density. Two spherical balls are there, right? One it is of density rho 1, second it is of density rho 2. There is a relation given rho 1, that is equal to 8 rho 2. One is having the radius of 1 mm, right, and second that is having the radius of 2 mm. They are made to fall vertically in the viscous medium whose coefficient of viscosity is eta and whose density is 0.1. Okay, fluid density, density of the fluid, right, it is of first, that is density of 0.1 to the density of fluid. The ratios of the terminal velocities will be what? It's a very simple thing. What is an equation of terminal velocity? 2 by 9 r square g rho minus rho 0, right, whole divided by eta, right? Viscosity is constant, g is constant, 2 by 9 is constant. So it means simple, the terminal velocity is directly proportional to r square rho minus rho 0. So simple, v1 by v2, right, that is r1 square by r2 square, that is rho minus rho 0, 1, 1, right, whole divided by rho minus rho 0 of 2. Replacing all of those values given, right, we are replacing value here, this value, right, this value and this value, right, we are getting the equations. The ratios of the terminal velocity is 79 by 36. Right, the D is the perfect answer for this specific question. The direct question based on the terminal velocity. The concept of the terminal velocity, Stokes law states particle is dropped, right, one drag force is acting, that is Stokes law, and that is determined by 6 pi r eta v. But when the particle is dropped, right, with respect to that, When the particle is dropped, all of those vertical forces are balanced, right? And it is moving constant velocity inside the fluid, and it is covering the depth. The velocity with which it is covering the depth and all the downwards and upward forces are balanced, right? That velocity is defined as the terminal velocity. In that case, the acceleration, the net acceleration in the y direction is completely zero. A small sphere of the radius r falls from the rest. See, NEET 2018, the question on the viscosity, viscous force has been asked. The small sphere of radius r falls from the rest in the viscous liquid. As a result, heat is produced. The rate of the production of heat, when particle is dropped, the object is dropped, heat is produced. What is the rate of the heat? That is power. Can I say that is force into velocity? Rate of heat, that is power, right? The rate of heat when sphere attain its terminal velocity is proportional to, simple. Rate of the production of heat is force into velocity. Force, it is defined as 6 pi r eta v into v. Can I say it is 6 pi r eta into v square? Here we need to calculate the rate when it attains terminal velocity. It means here v is the terminal velocity. If it reminds us, can I consider this as equation number 1? If we are recalling the equation of the terminal velocity, then v is directly proportional to r square. It means the rate is directly proportional to r to the power 5. C is the perfect answer for this specific question. C. NEET 2018. First of all, let's move on to the surface tension. What actually the surface tension is? What actually the surface tension is? I'm giving you all one simple example. There exists a situation in which, right? There exists a situation in which the fluid tries to adjust itself into the minimum surface area and acts like an elastic membrane. A situation at which the fluid tries to adjust itself in minimum surface area and it acts like stretched elastic membrane. This property is known as surface tension of the fluid. Best example. Have you ever kept this cloth wet? Right? Have you ever kept this cloth wet? Yes. Whenever you used to wash up this clothes, we used to do like, generally the boys used to do like this way. Right? Okay. They used to do you like this way. So whenever you are just stretching this object now, right? Okay, the water on the surface of this object will try to adjust into the minimum surface area. Right? At that position, it acts like a stretched elastic membrane. Have you ever seen the last drop that is falling from the leaf? It tries to adjust into the minimum surface area and it falls. That last moment, it acts like a stretch membrane. That is the concept of surface tension, and it is defined as force gradient or force acting per unit area. This is what actual the concept of the surface tension is, right? And with the concept of the surface tension, obviously we are going to see, right, some of the important theories, right? Okay, what actually it states, let's see this. Okay, to understand the concept of the surface tension, we are having the equation of the soap bubble theory. Suppose as because of the surface tension, right, the fluid is trying to adjust into the minimum surface area and it stretches like an elastic membrane. Suppose if I'm talking about a water drop or a drop of a fluid, initially the radius was r. When it acted like a stretch membrane, its radius increased to, right, its radius increased to delta r. Right. So here we are going to define one new thing, right? So here, initial area, that was 4 pi r square. Final area, can I define it as 4 pi, right, r plus delta r whole square. What will be into change in area? That is equivalent to right, 4 pi r plus delta r whole square minus 4 pi r square. So change in area, I can define it as 8 pi, right, r, okay, delta r. If change is quite small, right, can I define it as dA, that is equal to 8 pi, right, r dr. If change is quite small, if change is quite small, I can define it as dA is equal to 8 pi r dr. Right. Now, as because of some pressure difference inside and outside the soap bubble or a drop, let us consider the example of a drop first. As because of some difference, pressure difference, the soap is getting expanded and trying to, it's acting like a stretch elastic membrane. So see, the change in area is this. Now how much amount of the work is done, right, in increasing this surface area is our extra energy. So that work done, we can define it as T dot dA, right, and this dW I can say T dot 8 pi r dr. Can I consider this as equation number 1? This, right? Now how much amount of the force it is needed? The same. See, suppose if I'm talking about dW is equal to F dot dr, this force that is equal to pressure into area, so it will be 4 pi r square into pi minus p0 into dr. Can I consider this as equation number 2? Yes. Comparing 1 and 2, we are getting the pressure difference between the inside and outside the soap bubble, right? That is pi minus p0 is equal to 2t by r. It is having one free surface, that's why it is 2t by r. If I'm talking about a bubble, then it is having the two free surfaces, then pi minus p0 is 4t by r. This is what an actual derivation of soap bubble theory is, right? As because of this pressure difference, it is going to try or adjust itself into the minimum surface area and acts like a stretch membrane to show the surface tension. The same concept help us understanding the concept of the capillary action. The rise of the liquid into the capillary tube. Let us take an example to understand this. Suppose, okay, one capillary tube is dipped inside a fluid, right? Okay, and before moving on to that, right, the small definition like what actual the angle of contact is, right? You all are aware of what actual the concave fluid is, what actual the meniscus, concave meniscus, convex meniscus, right, which is a wettable liquid. Okay, you all are completely aware of it. So rise of the liquid into the capillary tube. Let us take an example, right, to understand. Suppose there is one container in which, right, this capillary tube is dipped, right, and this rise of the liquid happens, right, and this phenomena, it is known as capillary action, right? It is known as what? Capillary action. Okay, this is known as what? Capillary action. This rise of liquid occurs as because of this pressure difference. Suppose initially this was the height of the liquid,
and after the capillary tube is dipped, it rises up to height h. So rise of the liquid occurs, right, as of the pressure difference. So can I consider pressure difference Pi minus P0 as rho g h, right? And according to our previous theory, right, if meniscus is formed at this capillary tube, then it acts like a stretch membrane, right? See, if meniscus is, right, acting, then this will be your angle of contact, right? Okay, this will be your angle of contact, and we are having the curvature, right? Okay, we are having the curvature for this meniscus, right? So can I compare this rho g h as 2t whole divided by r? Okay, so comparing this two equation, I'm getting rho g h, that is equivalent to 2t by r, where height of the liquid into the capillary tube is 2t r by rho, so 2t by rho g r. If meniscus is not formed, then we are having this equation. If we are having the respective meniscus,